If China invaded Taiwan tomorrow, it wouldn't just be a regional conflict, it would be a global earthquake. Missiles would streak across the skies, warships would clash in the Pacific, sanctions would erupt worldwide. But the real battle wouldn't be fought only with bombs. It would be fought through microchips, trade, AI, cyber warfare, and the very infrastructure that keeps modern civilization running. In an instant, the world as we know it could grind to a halt, not from tanks or bullets, but from the lifeblood of our digital economy. The first shots. The attack would not begin with soldiers storming beaches. Instead, Beijing would unleash a shock and awe campaign, missiles targeting ports, airports, and air defenses. Communication networks would be disrupted, emergency systems scrambled, and panic spread across cities. Taipei, Kaohsiung, and Taichung would face devastation within hours. The United States, Japan, and other regional powers would face impossible choices: intervene and risk all-out war with China, or stand aside and watch Taiwan fall. History reminds us that hesitation can be deadly. The world ignored Hitler's expansion in 1938, and the cost was catastrophic. Conversely, the US rushed into Korea in 1950, but even then, the human and political toll was immense. Taiwan could be the most consequential flashpoint of the 21st century. Why Taiwan matters. The chip war. Taiwan is the beating heart of the global economy. It produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors and more than 90% of the most advanced chips. These tiny components power everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to AI servers, fighter jets, and even nuclear defense systems. The most critical company is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Its factories are civilization's bottleneck. If these facilities were destroyed or disabled, supply chains worldwide would collapse. Factories in Detroit, Munich, and Shanghai would grind to a halt. AI data centers in Singapore could shut down. Hospitals would struggle to operate critical equipment. Military systems dependent on advanced chips would falter. Taiwan semiconductors are not just a business, they are the gears of the global economy. Control over them is control over the future. Economic doomsday. Imagine the first day of an invasion, global stock markets hemorrhage trillions of dollars. The Nasdaq plunges harder than during the 2008 financial crisis. Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, all teeter on the brink of collapse as supply chains vanish overnight. Hospitals scramble for medical devices. Factories close. Military production falters. Economists predict that within a year, a Taiwan invasion could erase $10 trillion from the global economy, larger than the combined GDP of Japan and Germany. Trade routes through the South China Sea, which account for 30% of global commerce, would become perilous. Oil prices spike, raw materials vanish, and inflation surges. Panic spreads, and the world's interconnected system begins to crumble. China's gamble. Why would Beijing risk so much? For the Communist Party, Taiwan is unfinished business. For Xi Jinping, capturing Taiwan would cement his place in history, like Mao before him. But there is also a more practical reason: semiconductors. China produces less than 20% of its own semiconductor needs and imports more chips than it does oil. By controlling Taiwan, China wouldn't just claim territory, it would dominate the world's most critical technology. Yet there is danger. Destroying Taiwan's factories would harm China itself. It would be akin to burning the very vault you are trying to rob. The military nightmare. Defending Taiwan is a logistical and strategic nightmare. The Taiwan Strait is only 130 kilometers wide, yet an amphibious assault here would be the largest in modern history, surpassing D-Day. China has spent decades preparing, building missile arsenals, testing drones, hacking communications, and conducting annual Taiwan invasion simulations. U.S. military exercises predict thousands of casualties within the first 72 hours. Missiles could target U.S. bases in Guam, Okinawa, and aircraft carriers in the Pacific. Taiwan's defenses, while formidable, would face overwhelming pressure from land, sea, and air. Global ripple effects. If Taiwan falls, the consequences ripple worldwide. Japan, Okinawa threatened, forcing immediate military responses. Philippines hosts new U.S. bases, drawing the country into the conflict. South Korea faces a dual threat, defend chip factories or prepare for North Korean aggression. NATO pressured to act, questioning whether alliances in Europe would hold if Taiwan is abandoned. A regional conflict becomes a global crisis in a matter of days. Taiwan could be the Sarajevo of the 21st century, one flashpoint igniting a world war. Economic and cyber warfare sanctions would explode instantly. The US and allies could freeze Chinese assets, cut off banks from SWIFT, and blockade shipments. China would retaliate by controlling rare earth minerals, vital for electric vehicle batteries, smartphones, and fighter jets. Western corporations would lose access to Chinese markets. Chinese factories could grind to a halt. Oil prices would soar, inflation spike, and panic spread across global markets. But the war would not stop at economics. Cyber attacks could paralyze infrastructure worldwide. Ports, banks, hospitals, and AI networks could fail before a single soldier sets foot in Taiwan. Financial impact, freezing $500 billion in Chinese assets, could ripple through global trade, causing losses in the trillions within weeks. Infrastructure attacks. AI-driven cyber attacks could take offline 20 to 30% of critical national grids, halting hospitals, airports, and factories serving tens of millions. Global shipping. Malware targeting automated ports could disrupt 30% of world trade, potentially costing hundreds of billions per month. AI on the front line. Artificial intelligence would transform this conflict into a new kind of warfare. Autonomous drones and robotic vehicles. Swarms of 5,000 drones could strike ports, airfields, and supply lines in under 30 minutes, overwhelming traditional defenses. AI-driven disinformation campaigns. Millions of realistic fake social media posts could reach hundreds of millions of people daily, shaping global perception in real time. Predictive algorithms. AI could simulate 10,000 battlefield scenarios per second, anticipating movements and disrupting logistics for entire divisions. A China-Taiwan war wouldn't just be fought physically, it would unfold invisibly through servers, circuits, and code. The 21st century might see its first major war dominated by artificial intelligence. Red expansion beyond Taiwan. Taiwan may only be the first domino. China could aim to dominate the South China Sea, challenge India along the Himalayas, or tighten control over Hong Kong. Xi Jinping has warned the world, China will not be contained. Taiwan could be the opening act of a broader geopolitical reshaping, a test of global alliances and resolve. Taiwan's strategic defenses. Taiwan is fighting on multiple fronts: military, legal, and diplomatic. Beijing cites UN Resolution 2758 to justify its claims. Taiwan rejects it, insisting only its democratically elected government represents its people. Taiwan is also securing critical resources, like Russian naphtha for semiconductor production, ensuring its technological lifeline survives international pressure. The island has resisted U.S. proposals to relocate critical chip production abroad, emphasizing the strategic importance of local manufacturing for national security and global stability. Lessons of history. History teaches that hesitation and miscalculation can be deadly. Korea, 1950. U.S. intervention prevented a total collapse of the South. Crimea, 2014. Sanctions punished Russia but avoided direct confrontation. Ukraine, 2022. Proxy wars and sanctions dragged on for years. Taiwan could combine all three: sanctions, proxy wars, and direct conflict. But both sides have nuclear capabilities, raising the stakes immeasurably. The economic aftershock. A Taiwan conflict could split the global economy, one bloc operating on the US dollar, another on China's yuan. Two internets, two tech ecosystems, two trade systems. Energy prices could double, food prices triple, and inflation become permanent. Sanctions against Russia cause significant disruption. China is 10 times bigger. The aftershock could be catastrophic, affecting every corner of the globe. Future scenarios. There are 3 possible outcomes. Lightning strike victory. China overwhelms Taiwan, establishing a new superpower era. Prolonged stalemate. US and allies intervene. Years of grinding war devastate Asia and global economies. Escalation to World War III. Miscalculations spark nuclear exchanges, threatening civilization itself. Each scenario carries immense consequences for both the region and the world. The final question. Taiwan's fate is not just about territory, it's about the fragile threads connecting the global economy, human lives, and technology. A single conflict could disrupt hospitals, destroy factories, ruin families, and reshape the world order. Will China risk everything to reunify Taiwan? Will the US gamble World War III to stop it? Or will Taiwan become the flashpoint that reshapes the 21st century forever? The answer will define whether the 21st century is dominated by cooperation or catastrophe.